Yu-Gi-Oh! Mint.com is now TradingCardMint.com. Please check out their selection of over 20,000 cards with prices cheaper than TCG Player.
Alright, what is up YouTube? I'm 40. We're going to be looking at, I believe this list is the WGP from, I believe it was Malaysia this past weekend. But this deck ended up winning. I believe it was either English or Japanese, can't remember off the top of my head. But this deck did end up beating out some of the most favored decks in Standard. And a lot of people have been waiting for this because Standard has been purely dominated by nothing but OTT. And it's been a shit show for a lot of people. I know a lot of people have been very frustrated with it and just things like that. First off, before we get into this deck review, I do want to say please check out our friends at TradingCardMint.com down below in the description. Enter MCO40. Save you guys yourselves a little bit of money. Oxo clans and things like that, you use your momentum to pierce away your opponent's defense. And I think it's one of the cool things about this deck. This deck is very, very, very combo oriented. And having kind of played it a little bit, you need to understand that our playtesting videos are behind us ourselves. You know, we're usually like a week or so out. But getting the chance to test this and kind of see the power that this deck has going for it, like, this deck is pretty crazy just in the advantage that it can generate while you're trying to pressure your opponent with these Excel circles. And it's almost weird that they made this deck Excel, and I'm almost kind of curious to see what they're going to do to Vermilion and company when Narukami gets their support, because it's only going to take a little bit to push the deck over the edge. And in a deck that was already like wanting to pressure your opponent's field, I can only imagine what they're going to do. But in the same fashion as this, your deck is geared towards trying to lock down your opponent. And honestly, it's one of the cool things about this deck. So we are playing 4 copies of Dueling Dragon Zanbaku. And for those of you that don't know, his only real skill is just once per turn, counterblast 1, soul blast 1. Search your deck for up to 1 card with a Rester in its card name and call it to rearguard. And this unit gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. And then left and right are on your rearguard. Your opponent cannot write a grade 3 from a grade 3 card. Now, I think a lot of people need to understand here, it is incredibly beautiful when you are just like, oh cool, you have the other combo piece in your hand, you call the other one. There is a certain order to get it done, but yeah, you have to have the correct piece to be able to lock out your opponent. So I don't know if people kind of, I don't know, the deck is kind of weird. You've got really weird pressure orders that you need to be able to do things. So 4 copies of this. Now, this list was playing 2 copies of Mandala Lord. Now, Mandala Lord is actually pretty cool. So when placed, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose 2 of your units, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same name as those units, call them to rearguard, and shuffle your deck. Then you can put a card from your hand into your soul, and all of your units with the same name as this unit get plus 3,000 power to the end of the turn. The thing we care about most is on ride, you can clone 2 units. And as Austin was saying, like, this card's pretty insane because the units that you clone do not go back to the deck. They are just out for the entire rest of the game. You know what that means? You can clone the craziest of units. And, you know, if you don't kill your opponent with this, just ride this guy and clone 2 of your other offensive units, and you've done what you needed to do. And plus more Excel circles. Now this card is just absolutely dumb. So when it attacks, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, until the end of the battle this guy gets 5k. And your opponent will call guardians, they have to call 2 or more at the same time. So I will say the thing about this guy is seeing this on an Excel circle for 27 is so dumb. Like, this card actually scares me. Also seeing this on the Vanguard circle is pretty bad too. Now, the key cards that you need to make this deck work. So left arrestor. So when it attacks Vanguard, if you have another rearguard with a residence card name, Soul Blast 1 and this guy gets 5k. So this is just your standard 14k attacker, but you do need to have the other arrestor to make this combo live. So right arrestor is the one that makes the world go round. So this is the big one. It says when placed, if you have a Vanguard with Dueling Dragon Zanbaku and you have another rearguard with arrestor, you counterblast 2, put a card from your hand into your soul. Choose one of your opponent's vanguards, and that unit cannot stand during the next phase. So basically, your best case scenario is you have this with Zanbaku, this one. So you call this, do this to call this, to do what you need to do to paralyze your opponent, because then you lock your opponent out of being able to rewrite on the next turn, and then you also force your opponent not to be able to restand their vanguard on the next turn. Now it is a very costly, to do the full combo, it's, you know, counterblast 3, and I don't, a lot of people need to understand that it's like, you can beat this deck by aggroing it. I had no problem aggroing it with Shadow Paladin. It's kind of weird to say that, aggroing with Shadow, but I mean, I've always been very rushy with my control Shadow. Now, one of the more interesting cards that this deck got is this guy. I know a lot of people have gone to playing this. For those of you that don't know, if you have 4 or more rear guards during your turn, this guy gets 5k in the win place, choose one of your units, and that unit can attack the back row. This is one of the first cards in the game, actually, without severe restrictions, that can attack the back row. I mean, we have other units that can engage with attacking the back row, but I particularly like this one because, obviously, like, being able to choose himself to ping something, you can also ping something in the back row, because he's Vanguard Rearguard for that skill. I don't know, this card is just funny when it comes to it. I definitely see the value in it. But it's such an awkward skill for this deck. Like, this deck is about locking your opponent out of being able to play in Standard, and then they just gave the deck this. Like, what were you thinking? I mean, I guess higher attackers is something of value, but they don't have any better options at the moment. But as for a pressure card, like, this card does do what it needs to do. It's just, I want to see the premium version of this deck. I know it's not going to be good, but... Alright, we have 4 copies of Turbulent Edge. So, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Until the end of the turn, change the names of all Stealth Dragon of this guy to Mandala Lord, and all Covenant Mandala Lords on Vanguard and Rearguard get 3k. So you actually play this with Mandala Lord. Remember, Mandala Lord does have the ability to change additional names as well. So if you get multiples of these, you can just kind of do some really weird attack patterns with this. I definitely think that this being able to change all of the names for literally just Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 is not bad. Your Soul doesn't really, you don't need it as much as you think you would in this deck. I mean, it helps to have it, but your only real skills you're going to be feeding are this plus the others. So as long as you have multiples of these, plus this is an axe, so it's actually pretty good. We are playing 3 copies of this guy. So if your rear guard was placed on deck from this turn, this guy gets 5k. So, you know, standard 12k attacker. Honestly, nothing too special going on here, but I will take this. I remember when this deck was supposed to be just calling. I mean, so if you have Zanbaku and you call the Arrestor, like, free value time. Now, this is the other grade 1 that we're playing. For those of you that don't know, if you don't have another Stealth Dragon, or Stealth Beast Million Rat on rearguard, Counterblast 1, search deck for another one of these, and then you can get minus 4k till the end of the turn. So, being able to clone is really popular, especially with these. These things get bigger. Also, the monster will return to being an 8k. I don't like the restriction on this that says you cannot have another, but I mean, you could toss in the front row and force your opponent to try to kill it. At worst case scenario, it just becomes another target for your opponent to try to wipe out. The one of from here was this guy. When it boosts, if you have 2 or more cards the same name as the boosted unit, gets 3k. So 10k overall. Like, hello, free value. Triggers. This deck does play front triggers, so there are 5 front triggers. There would be a lot of times when you're just playing this deck that you need to understand you are a very, very offensive deck. If your opponent hits a defense trigger, you honestly need to be able to counteract that. That's the thing that, like, front triggers do, is just kind of alleviate the stress of your opponent. Now, this deck did play 5 draws, which I know a lot of people are going to find kind of weird. Now, 5, 5, 2, and then 4 heals, and then 1 copy of the starter. Now, the deck's a lot of fun. I will say, you have no problem with OTT. It's one of your best matchups to ever exist. So paralyze and pressure them. That's how the deck works. So guys, remember, check out tradingcardmint.com down below in the description. Enter MCO40 on checkout. Save a little bit of money. And as always, guys, that's all I got. Peace out.